Have you ever felt completely invisible, even in a room full of people who are supposed to care about you? That's exactly how I felt when I stood up to give a toast at my ex-wife's wedding. Yes, you heard that right. But just when I thought I'd hit rock bottom, my 14-year-old daughter grabbed the microphone, and what happened next left everyone in that banquet hall completely speechless. Stay with me to hear how one brave girl turned the most humiliating moment of my life into something I'll never forget. Welcome to Plot Twist Life, where we share real stories that will make you laugh, cry, and maybe even change your perspective on life. Before I dive into what happened at that wedding reception, make sure to subscribe to our channel right now for more incredible stories that remind us of the unexpected ways life can surprise us. Hit that notification bell too, so you never miss the plot twists that might just inspire your own life. I've always prided myself on being the bigger person. When my ex-wife Caroline and I divorced 5 years ago, I promised myself I'd never be that bitter ex-husband who makes everything difficult. We had a 14-year-old daughter, Emma, and I knew that for her sake, we needed to at least be civil with each other. I wanted Emma to grow up seeing that even when relationships end, respect doesn't have to. So when Caroline announced she was getting remarried to David, a successful businessman she'd been dating for 3 years, I congratulated her. I meant it too. Caroline deserved happiness, and David seemed like a decent guy who treated Emma well. What more could I ask for? Then came the surprising part. Caroline invited me to the wedding, not just to drop Emma off, but as an actual guest. She said it would mean a lot to Emma to have both her parents there on such an important day. I hesitated at first. Who wants to watch their ex-wife marry someone else? But Emma was so excited about the idea that I couldn't say no. "Dad, it'll be so cool to have you there," she said, her eyes lighting up. "Plus, we can make fun of all the weird relatives together." That was Emma for you, always finding the humor in awkward situations. She'd been my rock through the divorce, somehow maintaining her quick wit and optimism even when things got tough. I bought a new suit for the occasion, got a haircut, and even practiced my polite small talk. I was determined to show everyone, including myself, that I was completely fine with this new chapter in Caroline's life. The ceremony itself was beautiful. Caroline looked radiant in her cream-colored dress, much simpler and more elegant than our own wedding 20 years ago. Emma was one of the bridesmaids, stunning in a pale blue dress that made her look far older than her 14 years. She caught my eye during the vows and gave me a subtle thumbs up. I smiled back, grateful for her silent support. It was at the reception where things started to unravel. I'd been seated at what could only be described as the random leftovers table. A distant cousin of David's, a couple of Caroline's co-workers I'd never met, and an elderly aunt who kept asking me which side of the family I was from. I smiled politely and explained my somewhat unusual position at this wedding. "Oh my," the aunt said, patting my hand. "Aren't you a good sport? I could never attend my ex-husband's wedding. I'd probably poison the punch." She cackled at her own joke while I forced a laugh. 2 glasses of champagne into the evening, Caroline's father, my former father-in-law Robert, approached the microphone. Robert and I had always gotten along well. He was a fair man who never took sides during the divorce and always made sure I was still included in family events for Emma's sake. "Friends and family," he began, his voice filled with emotion. "Today we celebrate the beginning of a beautiful new journey for Caroline and David." He shared a few heartwarming stories about the couple, congratulated David on joining their family, and then said something that caught me by surprise. "And I'd like to invite Thomas, Emma's father, to say a few words. Thomas has shown incredible grace throughout this transition in our family, and I know he has some wisdom to share." My heart jumped into my throat as a spotlight suddenly found me at my table in the corner. I hadn't prepared anything. No one had told me I'd be expected to speak. But I saw Emma's encouraging face and Robert's kind smile, so I stood up and made my way to the microphone, straightening my tie nervously. I cleared my throat and looked out at the sea of faces. "Thank you, Robert. This is unexpected." A few polite chuckles rippled through the crowd. Caroline and I may have found that we weren't meant to spend our lives together, but we did create something perfect together. Our daughter Emma. I looked over at Emma, who was beaming at me. And through Emma, we'll always be family in some way. Caroline, I continued, turning to my ex-wife, I'm genuinely happy that you've found someone who brings you joy. David, I nodded to the groom, you're getting an amazing woman, and I know you'll take good care of her and be a positive presence in Emma's life too. I raised my glass. To Caroline and David. May your marriage be filled with more laughter than tears, more understanding than misunderstanding, and a love that grows stronger with each passing year. What happened next still makes my stomach twist when I think about it. The room remained silent. No echoing, "Here, here." No clinking glasses, no warm applause. Just uncomfortable shifting in seats and a few awkward coughs. I stood there, glass raised, feeling like an absolute fool. David's best man quickly stood up and said, "And now, let's all head to the dance floor." The music started up loudly, and everyone seemed relieved to have an excuse to ignore what had just happened. I placed the microphone back in its stand, my hand slightly shaking, and made my way back to my table, keeping my eyes on the floor. The elderly aunt patted my hand again. "That was nice, dear," she said, but her pitying look only made me feel worse. I sat there, contemplating how quickly I could leave without drawing attention to myself. Emma was busy with her bridesmaid duties, and I figured she'd understand if I slipped away early. I just needed to escape the humiliation that was burning through me. As I was gathering my courage to stand up and leave, the music suddenly cut off. I looked up to see Emma standing at the microphone, her expression determined. My heart sank. What was she doing? "Excuse me, everyone," she said, her voice surprisingly steady for a 14-year-old addressing a room of over 100 adults. I know we're all excited to dance, but I think we forgot something important. The room quieted down, all eyes on my daughter. Caroline looked confused, while David seemed slightly annoyed at the interruption. "My dad just gave a really beautiful toast," Emma continued. "And I think he deserves a proper response." She looked directly at me, and I could see a fierce protectiveness in her eyes that made my throat tighten. You all know me as Caroline's daughter, or now as David's stepdaughter, but I'm also Thomas's daughter. And I want to tell you something about my dad that you might not know. I wanted to shrink into my chair. What was she going to say? The divorce had been amicable, but it wasn't without its painful moments. Had I said something during that difficult time that she was now going to share with everyone? "When my parents decided to divorce," Emma said, her voice growing stronger, "I was 9 years old, and I thought my world was ending. I was angry and scared, and I didn't understand what was happening." The room was completely silent now. I could feel every eye moving between Emma and me. But my dad sat with me every single night for months, even when I was furious at him, even when I said horrible things to him. He never got angry back. He just kept showing up. I remembered those nights, Emma's tears, her confusion, her outbursts, the way she'd scream that she hated me one minute, then cling to me the next. How small she'd seemed, how vulnerable. When I wanted to quit the swim team because I was too embarrassed to have two parents showing up separately, he convinced me to stick with it. And then he and my mom worked out a schedule so they could both attend my meets without making me feel awkward. Emma looked over at Caroline, who I was surprised to see had tears in her eyes. When I had my first school dance, Dad learned how to braid my hair by watching YouTube videos, because Mom was at a conference. It was the worst braid ever, she laughed, and the crowd laughed with her. But he tried, and he kept trying with everything. My vision blurred as I blinked back tears. I hadn't known that she'd noticed these things, that they had mattered to her. The reason I'm telling you all this, Emma continued, her voice cracking slightly, is because my dad just stood up here and was completely selfless and kind about my mom marrying someone else. And that didn't surprise me at all, because that's who he is. He's always put my happiness above his own. She raised her glass. So I'd like to properly toast my dad, Thomas. He taught me what real love looks like. It's not just about romance. It's about respect and kindness, even when it's difficult. Especially when it's difficult. Emma looked directly at me. Dad, thank you for showing me how to be gracious and strong at the same time. I love you. And then something remarkable happened. Carolyn was the first to stand, raising her glass toward me. To Thomas, she said clearly. David hesitated for just a moment before standing and raising his glass as well. One by one, the entire room rose to their feet. To Thomas, they echoed, and finally, the sound of clinking glasses filled the air. I remained seated, too overwhelmed to stand. Emma handed the microphone to the DJ and made her way through the crowd to my table. Without a word, she wrapped her arms around me in a fierce hug. I'm so proud to be your daughter, she whispered. I held her tight, unable to speak. In that moment, I realized something profound. The family we had created hadn't been destroyed by the divorce. It had evolved into something different, but the love remained, transformed and strengthened through the challenges. Later that evening, as the reception was winding down, Carolyn found me by the dessert table. Emma's speech, she said, looking slightly uncomfortable. That was unexpected. I nodded, still not entirely trusting my voice. But she was right, Caroline continued, surprising me. You have been incredible through all of this. I don't think I ever properly thanked you for that. We both did our best, I said. That's all we could do. Still, she said, having you here today means a lot. Not just to Emma, but to me too. We're still family, just in a different way now. David appeared at her side, and to my surprise, he extended his hand to me. Your daughter is remarkable, he said as we shook hands. You've done an amazing job raising her. We all have, I replied, including Caroline in my glance. And we'll all continue to. As I drove home that night, with Emma asleep in the passenger seat, she'd gotten permission to spend the night at my place. I reflected on how differently the evening had turned out from what I'd expected. I'd gone to the wedding prepared to be the supportive ex-husband, to show Emma that relationships can end with dignity. Instead, my 14-year-old daughter had shown me that family bonds transcend marriage certificates and divorce papers. The next morning, as Emma and I sat eating pancakes at my kitchen counter, I asked her something that had been on my mind. What made you decide to say all those things last night? She shrugged, cutting her pancake into precise triangles the way she'd done since she was little. I couldn't let them disrespect you like that. You deserved better. It was a wedding, sweetheart. The focus was supposed to be on your mom and David. Emma looked up at me, suddenly seeming older than her years. Dad, respect isn't something that gets put on hold for special occasions. You taught me that. I smiled, once again finding myself learning from my own child. Besides, she added with a mischievous grin, it felt pretty awesome to make a whole room of adults listen to me. Do you think I have a future in public speaking? I laughed. After that performance, absolutely. In the months that followed, something shifted in our blended family dynamic. David seemed more relaxed around me during pickups and drop-offs. Carolyn began consulting me more openly about Emma's school and activities. And Emma? She walked with a new confidence, like someone who had discovered her own power. As for me, I stopped seeing myself as just the ex-husband or even just Emma's dad. I was Thomas, someone worthy of respect and consideration in my own right, someone who had contributed something valuable to this family constellation. When Emma's 15th birthday came around, we did something unprecedented. A joint celebration with all of us, me, Caroline, David, and both extended families. As I watched Emma blow out her candles, surrounded by people from different chapters of her life, all coming together seamlessly, I caught her eye and she winked at me. That's when I knew for certain the awkward toast at the wedding hadn't been a humiliation after all. It had been the beginning of something beautiful, a moment of uncomfortable honesty that paved the way for genuine connection. Sometimes, being ignored turns out to be the best thing that can happen to you, because it creates space for something authentic to emerge. And sometimes, the people who know you best, even when they're only 14, are the ones who can show the world who you really are. That day at the wedding reception taught me that sometimes our children can be our greatest teachers and defenders. Emma's courage didn't just save me from embarrassment, it transformed our entire family dynamic into something stronger and more authentic than I ever thought possible after a divorce. I'd love to hear your stories about times when someone unexpectedly stood up for you, or when a difficult moment led to surprising growth. Share your experiences in the comments below and tell me what resonated most with you in this story. If you enjoyed this glimpse into my life's most unexpected plot twist, please hit that subscribe button and join our Plot Twist Life community. Every week, we share stories that remind us that life's most challenging moments often lead to the most beautiful transformations. Until next time, remember that sometimes being silenced creates the perfect opportunity for something more powerful to be heard.